So someone asked me to talk about my family's reactions to my transition, and more specifically, their reactions to me being on testosterone. Um, so basically, I'll give you a timeline of kind of how I came out to my family. So I told my mom in uh, May of 2012. She told my dad a few days later. So still in May. I told my brother in July, and then my mom told my sister at my request in August. So by October, we had chosen my name, and you know it had been spread around that I would be going by male pronouns. And it was October when that really started happening. And then my birthday, which is at the end of October, was my 16th birthday at the time, was when it was like, okay, yeah, this is a permanent thing. No more. Anything after this is like a screw up rather than like a we don't know if this is a thing yet. If that makes sense. So I kind of like view it as on my birthday when they all sang happy birthday and they used my name. Um, that kind of was like a silent agreement of this is a thing now and you can't mess up anymore kind of thing. So in that regard, it did take a while, but only because it took a while to come out to everybody. Um, so during that time, I was discussing, um, my name and pronouns and everything and my feelings and all that with my mom. Um, and then my mom was like my go-to person for the first couple years. Um, she bought me my binders, my Packers, my STP. She paid for my name change, like all this stuff. And so she was my go-to. Um, and for that stuff, like she didn't necessarily understand, but she knew that I knew I needed it. So she was like, "Yeah, okay, I'll get it for you." Um, but So in that regard, like she was great. And then when it came to testosterone, she wasn't too keen on it. Um, I never spoke about testosterone with the rest of my family until after I started it. But with my mom, like it took a lot of convincing. She was like, "Well, why don't we do puberty blockers?" And I was like, "Well, that's not gonna. There's no point in paying for that when I've already gone through puberty, and it's not going to do what I want it to do for me." So I finally convinced her that if I call the doctors and I get it all done, that she would be okay with it. And so I did that, and I got on testosterone. And my mom was happy for me. She came to the appointment with me to the endocrinologist, and completely vouched for me and said like he's ready for this and all this stuff. So that was awesome. My dad drove. The other thing is like my dad has been silently there this whole time supporting me, but we never spoke about it. And I think that that starts with the fact that I didn't tell him. I got my mom to tell him for me, and that means that the dialogue was never started between us. And I think I kind of regret that, but then at the same time, it all worked out in the end, so I don't really. But so he drives me to every appointment I have. He drives me, to all this stuff, and they're all out of town. Um, my doctor, my endocrinologist, surgery stuff, like all of this stuff is all out of town. Um, so he's been there, and then all of my meltdowns that I had a couple years ago, like he was always there to pat me on the back and be like, "It's gonna be okay," um, and stuff like that. My mom's not so good with that stuff, um, but my dad surprisingly is. Uh, and then starting testosterone, so that was a little under 2 years after I came out, was when my dad finally, like, we had a conversation about my transition, and ever since we've been able to talk about it openly, and that's fantastic. Um, so by way of testosterone, like I was kind of surprised that we've never spoke about it. Um, I don't know, like I just hear a lot of people say like that their parents would like talk about them or talk about it with them, and I just didn't. My family just didn't ever say anything. It was just something I was doing. Um, and it wasn't like if I brought it up, we'd talk about it, but they never brought it up. Um, so there were little comments about my voice cracking and stuff, which was whatever. And then my dad is really concerned about my acne. He is concerned about the acne on my back and my shoulders and stuff, and he always asks me about it. But yeah, it's more just talking about like my oily skin and all this stuff. But otherwise, like after we got over the hurdle of this is something I'm going to be doing, it wasn't a big deal anymore, and it's just a normal thing now. I open my door before my shot every time, and I just yell out, "I'm doing my shot! Don't knock on my door," and everyone just goes, "Okay," right? It's just something normal, and I kind of like it that way. Um, because to me it's just something normal, and I like that it's not a big deal and we don't have to talk about it all the time. So uh, my sister, who turns 14 today, um, her and I talk a lot now about my transition. I actually like talking to her about it because she does seem interested enough and she's willing to listen and not, you know, assume things and all this stuff. Like she's just willing to listen and hear me out when I need to talk about stuff, which is awesome because we've never had that relationship before. Um, but we've really gotten to know each other better over the past year, which is awesome. And so she's great. My brother doesn't really get it. He understands that I'm his brother, and he's great with pronouns and name. He doesn't understand the physical aspect of it, so I tend to not want to talk about it ever with him because I always end up really upset and offended. Um, and I know that he knows that he's upset me, but he doesn't think he's wrong. So even though I can tell he feels bad for upsetting me, he doesn't understand what he said is offensive and hurtful because it's what he believes. And I mean, there's nothing I can do about that. I love my brother, and maybe it's just something we don't talk about. Um, but it's usually like he said to me that I'm wasting my money and that he doesn't understand why I can't just be happy the way I am. He doesn't understand why I have to take testosterone. He absolutely does not understand why I'm spending $8,000 on surgery. Um, to him, he outright said it's a waste of money and that I'm crazy. And that, at, we were talking about just all of the surgeries I'm going to need in my life, and I was really upset about it because I just was kind of venting, and he said, "Well, you don't get any sympathy because you chose this," and that I exploded on him, and he realized then that he'd made a mistake and that he should not have said that. Um, it's just a lack of education and lack of knowledge on the subject because it doesn't affect him. Um, he knows I'm going to do all this stuff anyway. He doesn't really care. Um, he accepts me as his brother, and I guess that's all I can ask for. Um, but by way of like physically transitioning, I don't like to talk about it with them. Maybe that will change in the future, but I don't really see that happening. Um, so we still get along and everything. We're still really close. It's just something we don't talk about, or that I prefer not to talk about. But as a whole, my family is pretty great. Um, they're not trying to stop me. They're not trying to convince me otherwise. They're not trying to do anything but let me be myself. My mom said to me that, um, she was upset, but she realized very quickly how, like, she had noticed how miserable I'd been for several years before I came out, and she said it wasn't her in regards to testosterone because it took me a year to convince her. Um, she said in regards to it that it's not her job as a parent to be the cause of my misery. Um, so she realized that she was holding me back, and that I was mature enough to make that decision And if all it took was her, giving the okay, then who was she to try and stop me from being happy? And she acknowledges, and my whole family acknowledges that I'm a much happier person now, and I'm, you know, just all around better. So yeah, I think that overall I'm really lucky with my family and everything. So thank you for the topic. My internet's not working right now, so I can't look up what your username is. But thank you for the topic. And I know you gave me a couple other topics too, so I'll talk about those later. So as always, my GoFundMe for my top surgery is in the description. I realized that I need that money faster than I thought I did, so I'm really scrambling at the moment to try and get this $2,500. So if you could donate or spread the link, I would really, really appreciate it. Um, so subscribe if you have any comments, questions, or video topics. Let me know. Leave them down below or message me. And thank you for watching.